Well, this is weird. Well, a few weeks ago, I received a request. Somebody wanted to know if I wanted a friendship bread starter. So this is Amish Friendship Bread. Now, if you don't know anything about Amish Friendship Bread, it was real popular in the 80s. It started being published in newspapers and everything. I remember a different version of this recipe, but I have not been able to find the version I remember. So I'm trying out this recipe, and I'll be honest, everything about it is strange. So let's give it a try. Before we continue on with this video, I wanted to bring up today's sponsor, which is you. So Patreon gives us an opportunity to engage with our fans that really want to support the channel. Every day, small channels like mine goes away. And the reason why is that, one, YouTube cheats us. Two, it costs so much and we're not getting enough money. And three, we're just lacking the support we need. So Patreon gives you a chance to support small content creators like myself so that I can continue putting out the content you like. And the way it's set up is that it's a paid monthly subscription. And so you pay Patreon, then Patreon pays me. And so with each paid level, you get different benefits. So I got Friends of Kent, and that is the lowest level. Then I've got the Squatch Squad. And so that's another level, and then I got Mega Patrons. And so each one has a certain benefit that I think is worth the level of money that you're paying out. And so it is a way that you can help me to shape this channel, for you to support this channel, to provide things that I need monetarily to keep things going. So I need your help, and this is a way that you can help. So please go to my Patreon channel, and link it is in the description as well. And on to the video. So I have something here pretty interesting. A young lady from my church, Miss Megan, she gave me some of this. And if you remember my sourdough bread recipe, this is basically how you make a cake out of sourdough bread using my starter. There's a little bit of a difference in it, but not much. But this right here became hugely popular in the 1980s. Now, some cookbook authors say that this was done decades before. However, there's no real proof that that's the case. The most that we can see is that there might have been some usage in the 70s, but more than anything else, it became popular at least in the 1980s. Now, my Grandma Johnson used to make something very similar to this that was a friendship cake. And there was a starter that you used, but you had to add fruit and other things. It was a type of fruit cake, but it wasn't like a regular fruit cake. It was a fermented fruit cake. In fact, it is my favorite cake in the world, and I've never had anybody make one like my Grandma Johnson before. I'm still trying to get that recipe down. But again, the friendship cakes, they were popular around 1970s, and then newspapers started printing this Amish Friendship Bread. It is very similar to a recipe called Herman Friendship Cake. And because it had the name Herman, some people thought it was German. So you will also hear German friendship cake. And that was something that was popular in Europe, not in America per se. And then the Amish came along with this. According to Amish authorities that are not actual from the Amish community, but people that they write about Amish cooking and Amish heritage. They say that this bread was mainly for people that were sick. They would make it and give it to people that were sick. But it comes with this recipe here, claiming, oh, the original Amish Friendship Bread recipe. Maybe, maybe not. Highly doubtful, but could be. I've had many versions of it, and they all differ somewhat. If it was a true Amish recipe, you would expect differences because different groups of Amish people in different communities, as they would mix and everything, they might share a recipe and add things. The recipe is pretty much straightforward. So reading through here, days, so I got this last night. So day 1, I'm supposed to do nothing. Day 2, day 3, day 4, and day 5, I'm supposed to just mash the bag every day. So today I'm supposed to do nothing to this. I'm just going to put it in a dark location because you got yeast cultures, wild yeast cultures, and you got bacteria cultures, so you don't want sunlight hitting it. Just kind of put it in a warm, dark location and just let it sit. So tomorrow I'll mash it, and then the next 3 days after that I'll mash the bag. Day 6, you're supposed to add 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of sugar, 1 cup of milk, and then mix in the bag. Okay? So again, this is supposed to be one of those sourdough recipes, but it's interesting that they do put sugar in there. I guess that's to kind of feed things along. I don't know why they add sugar, but they do. Then 7, 8, and 9, on those days, you just mash the bag. Day 10, that is when you pour out the contents of the bag. You add 1.5 cups of flour, 1.5 cups of sugar, and 1.5 cups of milk. You use 1 cup of the starter. The rest you divide out into 1 cup servings in a gallon bag and hand it to your friends. And they say it's about 4 to 7 cups that you'll have, so 4 to 7 friends that you can pass this along to. Because it uses a plastic bag, I'm not so certain about the origins of this recipe being so true, but either way. Then for baking, it uses a slack oven, so 325 degrees Fahrenheit. And then it's just basically 3 eggs, oil, milk, sugar, vanilla, cinnamon, little baking powder if you want that, which is weird. I don't know why they're putting baking powder into a leavened product, but they're saying to put baking powder in there. They also call for baking soda, which I find to be interesting. Salt, flour, 1 to 2 looks like boxes of instant pudding. Yeah, that looks legit for Amish people to use, instant pudding. And then a cup of chopped nuts or raisins. Then of course you can, it goes on from there. I'm not going to waste your time with details, since most of this is mash the bag, mash the bag, mash the bag. I am not going to waste your time with that, but after I have gotten to day 6, I'll show you that, because I mean, then we're actually doing something other than just mashing a bag. But as air seeps out, like you can see there's some air coming from this, all you do is just kind of open up the bag a little bit right here, and you just kind of poke it out. So all you do is just kind of press a little bit and then press it down. Hard surface, flat surface is the best way. It's going to, because it's sourdough, it's going to let out a lot of air as it warms up. Now right now my house is a little cool. It's about 67 degrees. So I'm going to find a warmer location to put this in, a dark location. You always want this to be in a dark, warm location. And then we'll just kind of let this sit, do its thing. And like I said, I'll see you back on day 6 when I add the cup of everything. We'll add that in there just for grins and giggles. And then I'll see you back day 10. Okay, so in true transparency, this has gone a little over a week beyond what it was supposed to. And the reason why is this starter never was acting right. It never did like it was supposed to. It is finally getting to what the starter should have been. So for whatever reason, the starter was not built up enough to do what this is supposed to do. Although the recipe is so weird, I really don't think it would matter that much. But I did want a good starter, so I waited about a week. So I'm not keeping totally with the recipe here, but I wanted a good starter. Now we're going to finish up the recipe. Now to this, I'm supposed to add 1 cup of flour, 1 cup of sugar, and 1 cup of milk. And then reserve 1 cup and use that for my starter for my bread. So the sugar is in there. There's the flour in there. Now we're pouring in the milk. Okay, so it calls for 1 cup of the batter. And you can tell it's kind of clumpy and everything because you cannot mix that stuff up good in the bag. I don't know why they have you do the bag, but they do. Next, I'm supposed to put in 3 eggs, 1 cup of oil, and looks like a ½ cup of milk to this. 3 farm eggs are now in there. Now a ½ cup milk. That right there is a cup of cooking oil. Now the recipe calls for a cup of sugar. Now they call for a ½ teaspoon vanilla extract. Well, it don't say vanilla extract, just says vanilla, so I'm assuming they mean extract. I'm going to go ahead and stir this up a little bit first, and then I'll add in the dry ingredients. It doesn't say do this, but I've made enough cakes to know this is what you're supposed to do. Now the recipe calls for 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now 1½ teaspoons of baking powder, which makes no sense to me. No one don't make sense. Says a ½ teaspoon of baking soda. ½ teaspoon of salt. Now 2 cups of flour. Now 1 to 2 boxes, says small boxes, so this is the smallest I could find, 3.4 ounces or 96 grams of instant pudding. It said any flavor, so they didn't care what flavor you used. I had an option between butterscotch, vanilla, and chocolate, so I went with vanilla. Now the recipe also says you can use either 1 or 2 boxes. They don't say size of the box, anything like that, so I'm going to do 1 for now and see how that works. So I'm going to stir this up first. This is one of those, if you have an electric hand mixer, use it. Alright, so it says I can use raisins or nuts. I'm going to actually use raisins and nuts. So 1.7 ounces, roughly 3 ounces of raisins is 1/3 of a cup. Got 2 ounces of walnuts, which is just a little shy of 1/3 a cup of walnuts. Then I got 1/3 cup of slivered almonds, which is roughly about a little over 1.5 ounces, 2 ounces. I actually prefer to bake with pecans, but they wanted like $7 for a small bag of pecans, and I was just not going to pay that. It's cheaper to buy the walnuts and the almonds and the raisins than it was for just the pecans. But pecans probably would taste better than this. Now the recipe says take 2 loaf pans. It just says large loaf pans and grease them. So this first one right here is 9 1/4 by 5 1/4 by 2 3/4 inches. So that's how big that metal one is. The ceramic one here is roughly 9 by 5 is all it says on it. Now the recipe says in a separate bowl take a 1/2 cup of sugar, 1 1/2 teaspoons of cinnamon sugar, and mix it together. So we're doing that, and then we'll put them in the greased loaf pans and shake it around, because that's what they're calling for. Which this part is more traditional with the Amish bread, so that at least that's in keeping with what I know is traditional for this bread. So we just gonna shake this around in here and get it all kind of coated. Alright, now we're gonna pour the batter into the 2 pans and then top with the remaining sugar mixture. Alright, so that's 2 filled. One's halfway, the ceramic one is halfway. This metal one's a little bit less than halfway. If it were me, I would let this set and rise, but it's saying not to, so I'm going to top with sugar, or the cinnamon sugar, and put it in the oven like it says to do. But I'm thinking that's a mess up. Alright, there we go. I am not concerned about not rising because it has leavening agents in it. It has the eggs, it has baking powder, it has baking soda. So I'm guessing that they're hoping to use the sourdough starter as a flavoring to kind of mimic the flavor of apples. I'm assuming. I'm guessing that's the only reason why they want it in this recipe. It's providing no leavening the way they got set up. I'm going to put it in the oven, mid-rack. And they say roughly an hour until the bread is done all the way through, and the loaf releases from the pan easily. Alrighty, so being a child from the 80s, nothing about this is what I remember from Amish Friendship Breads, but it came out beautifully. I mean, I've got to admit, it came out beautifully. When I research the recipes, just about all the recipes have basically the same recipe. It doesn't matter who printed it out. There might be a few differences here or there, but not enough really to matter. But I can't find any old resources to compare it. So if you happen to have a newspaper clipping from like the 1980s that's different, I would love to hear about that. But this right here I'm going to let cool. The glass, the one in the glass, it's not pulling out yet. It's probably going to take about another 10-15 minutes, and then I'll plate it as well. We'll let these cool, and then we'll cut it and do a taste test. So in true transparency, the glass, it's stuck, so we had a casualty here. When I flip it over, it's not going to look as good as the metal one. It's always best to bake in metal instead of glass, but just showing you difference. Glass tends to take longer to cook, and it tends to stick more usually. So I prefer baking in metal, and it's for this reason right here. Okay, so there's a little section right there of what it looks like when it's cut. Now let's give it a taste test. Thought I was filming, so it caught me middle eating. Give it a try. It's good. I won't say it's not good. Very good. It's not the Amish bread that I remember growing up in the 80s. I've tried finding some of the older recipes. They're just not online. If you happen to have one of the old newspaper clippings or something, I'd love to see your recipe. They all seem to be using a standard of this recipe. This isn't the Amish bread that I know. It's good though. I mean, it's real good. It'll be awesome with coffee. Give it a try. There's a bunch of recipes out there. A lot of them will say, oh, you can use it and put yeast in it. You can do all that stuff. Really and truly, I see no reason for the sourdough starter. There is no benefit of the sourdough starter that I can see. You don't need it. Just put an extra third cup of flour, third cup of milk, third cup of sugar. Just do this recipe without the starter. There's no need of going through all that nonsense. It adds nothing to the recipe. I think it's more of the mystique of this, whatever it is, I don't know. But yeah, it's still good though. Give it a try. Give it a try. Be great with coffee. Like I said, coffee, tea, anything hot, this would be really good, especially in wintertime. But give it a try. It's worth trying out, but I don't think it's worth doing the starter and all that. If you happen to have one of the old ones, I would love to see that recipe. I hadn't seen one of the old recipes in forever. And you can put all sorts of other fruits. This has got just a little bit of nuts and raisins. You could actually amp up more raisins and nuts than what I did and make it, I think it'd taste better. You could put craisins in it, blueberries, apples would be really good in this. I thought that's what they was trying to do with sourdough. Sourdough, when you sweeten it up into pastries, has an apple-like flavor. And I thought that's what they was trying to do, but there's no sourness, not enough sourness to the dough to, it doesn't do what it's supposed to do. But you could really make this your own. I'm sorry about that. But do give this a try. If you like this video, please hit the like button. Share with your friends. If you haven't already subscribed, why haven't you already? Go ahead. I hope this has earned your subscription. Hit that notification bell. And I'll see you again next time. Bye.